All right, checking Facebook to see if this live has started. And let's let a few more people join us. All right, Councilmember Johnson, the Facebook page is available if you want to share it now.
Just did. Are we ready to go, or we want to wait a few more minutes?
Had to unmute. You can go for it.
Cool. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 2021. It's our first breakfast / conversation of the year. 2021 has already been very busy, as I kind of spoke to in our newsletter. Today, we are joined by Jason Dean with the census to talk about that whole process and maybe even learn, what's coming next. So, well, without further ado, I will turn it over to Jason. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And here we go. I'll share my screen and hopefully everything goes smoothly here. Share. Okay. And so I'm the, let me turn off the chat here. I'm Jason Dean with the Census Bureau, and I have all of Kansas right now. They've narrowed down our staff quite a bit. We're done counting. We have a little bit more processing to do, and hopefully we'll have some numbers out that everyone's be very curious about soon in the next couple of weeks, and rolling out into the spring. This is a thank you and a review and what's next. So please let me know if you have any questions, and feel free to interrupt. I do not mind at all. Okay. And my screens are not going forward here. So, apologize for some reason I'm not getting page up here. Come on, page up. Oh, my screen not sharing. All right. Okay. Guess we'll do it this way. So our response rates is very interest to everyone, of course. So self-response, remember, is when people on their own, probably you and me, of course, either mailed in their form, went ahead and did it online, or called in. The door-to-door stuff is what we'll talk about in a minute. But the self-response is more accurate, right? Because people do it on their own time, in their own space, and they're a little more comfortable doing it that way. So we get better responses. After that, we have to go door knocking, which is intimidating to people. And sometimes we have to ask neighbors because people are uncomfortable giving their information at that point to what happens to be a stranger often. So our response rates were pretty good. You look at Kansas versus the nation, we were definitely ahead of the national response rate. Kansas was almost 70%, national was 67%. And every percent, that saves a lot of money to the taxpayers, and it improves the accuracy, like I said, quite a bit. So, and in Sedgwick County, you can see that little map there in the upper right-hand corner. We were number 17, the 17th most performing county in the state. And that is really good. Usually a lot of the smaller rural counties can get their numbers up quick because they don't have as many to count, right? So to be number 17 out of 105, I'm very impressed. I want to say thank you. And we really did, we exceeded what the census was expecting us to do. So we appreciate that. As far as Wichita, we were number 143, but there's 614 incorporated cities in the state that we track. So again, we're kind of on the upper end of that. So we appreciate your help. You filling out the forms, you telling your neighbors to get back their census. I know you're interested particularly in District 1, and I live here in Uptown, which I believe is District 1 as far as I know. And we exceed our rate here. This is by census tract, so some was a little behind, there's changes over 10 years. So there was, the darker hues is a better response rate. Different tracks over time change, and with housing and so forth is just going to vary. But I say, again, even at the track level, not too bad. There's a few little areas that we had to do a little more door knocking, and that's just the way it is, and that's all right. So the non-response follow-up, that's when we have to go do that door-to-door. And as well, we get some information, we call it administrative records. So we talk to those apartment managers, and we talk to facilities that like house groups of people, like like Catch and Starkey and so forth. And then we also go to the prisons and the nursing homes and the college dormitories and so forth to get the rest of that response that did not come in by people responding on their own. So once you add that all up together, we believe we were at 99.98%. Every address that was known, we put a population number to that. And so we are doing a post-enumeration survey to check our work. And so just remember that people think the census is over, and in a way it is, but we still have surveys going on, and we're still checking our work. So there's going to be a couple people in Wichita that someone's going to be talking to them. We're trying to do a lot by phone and of course by mail to make things as safe as possible for everyone. But if people don't respond, we will be coming to their door safely to collect those responses, to make sure they were accounted for in the census, or to make sure they're a part of an important survey that we do. Any questions so far? Good, perfect. Okay. With your help, we also were able to ensure that our special populations that aren't counted by the normal process, because like they're in, like I said, those group quarters. So that's like your nursing homes and prisons and dormitories and so forth, where the populations, there's special needs and special circumstances. So we expanded our outreach there to make sure we had good coverage. Targeted non-shelter outdoor locations, that's a fancy word for saying that's essentially counting those that are experiencing homelessness. And so again, that was drastically responded. We worked with Methodist Open Door and the homelessness outreach team with the Wichita Police Force that helped us find those locations. And I was able to help with that process, counting those individuals. And finally, the service-based enumeration. Again, if you think like that's like the Lord's Diner and the Salvation Army, places where people stay. And sometimes they are experiencing homelessness, or they're, we call like vicariously housed. They're in and out of, different situations, and it's just hard to capture those people. So we capture them where they will be receiving their services. And that's just another opportunity to make sure we have a very accurate response. Just if you're curious, this is our region for the census. So it's a pretty big region in terms of compared to the other regions across the nation. So we're right in the middle, but it goes, it's our main office is in Dallas and Denver. And so we ranked number 4 in our region. So it's pretty good. Nebraska, Utah, Colorado beat us out by just a little bit. But again, we perform very well. And that was, again, thanks to your help and your alerting your neighbors to making sure they respond to the census. What's next? So our population releases, we're going to be releasing hopefully in a couple of weeks, within a couple of weeks, like what's the population of the state. So whatever that number is, almost, we'll be close to 3 million, probably not quite. And then that gives us the number of US House representatives that we will have. Hopefully we still have 4, right? So probably. And then later on next spring and into the summer, then I'm sure the commissioners and city council members, Brandon Johnson, all you guys are going to be very interested to know what the population is of your districts, right? Because they're all going to have to change to make sure that their people are represented equally in each area. So it's going to be a very busy, interesting spring and into summer. And I'm here, that's my job, at least through August, to help you understand that process. And Camilla, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but we'll be doing some more in-depth presentations on our data and understanding that. So just to let you know, and I know we were thinking about doing something, I think in May, kind of in that direction. So if any of you all have something else or a meeting coming up or something happening later this spring or summer, and you'd like to talk more about the census, let me know. And I'll make sure my information is on the chat before we're all gone here. Our main messaging at this moment, people think again that they're done with the census, and mostly that's true, but we do have some very important surveys: crime, health, education, population, that we do more in-depth analysis of what's going on in your neighborhood. And I'll just pull out one, for instance, the National Crime Organization Survey is very important because, some people don't always report crime. There's, there are a lot of different reasons. It's not a big enough deal to them, but they were robbed, or, maybe they've had an in-run with the local police enforcement or what have you. And so, but they'll tell us in a survey what's been happening to them. And so we collect our own data and we keep that very secure. And it's very important that communities know what's going on and can track that in their own neighborhoods to know, are we improving? Is there an area where we need improvement? How do we need to respond to that? Well, we need to know what's going on first, right? So that's what, just an example of what our surveys are doing. Even with COVID right now. Go ahead.
Excuse me, this is Camila. With this additional surveys, which I think is a news to me, how are they initiated? Is that by phone, by mail, or by door knocking?
So most of those surveys, we're going to start by a mailer out to every household that is going to be in that survey. And then if they don't respond, then that's when we call or we go door to door in most cases. And it'll say on the envelope, how you differentiate it from a scam or something that's not from the census. You can always go online or call us. You can just go to census.gov and type in, am I in a survey? And then it'll lead you to a page where you can either call us or email us and find out, if you're in that survey. And the more information about it. And they're all over the board. Some of them, there's a few we even pay people to do. Some of them are voluntary. Some of them are required by law. So there's hundreds out there. And so I'm as a resource whenever someone from a constituent from the community is concerned or has questions, how to help them through that process if they do get a survey.
Hey, Jason, real quick,
Yeah.
We got a question from Facebook that asks, when is the estimated date those will be mailed out?
So great question. Thank you. Mr. Johnson. So it's an evergreen program, most of these. So that means it's ongoing. So some of them might get one today and it just keeps going. They're not randomized. We specifically target neighborhoods and demographics because we need to get information to make sure everyone's included. But it's over longitudinal time. So it's just ongoing. Great question. Like I mentioned, we'll be working in the spring into the summer, and we have a data dissemination team, and I'll be working closely, collaborating with them to make sure you're getting that data. There is things online right now as far as some more general topics about the data we collect, the surveys we do, and so forth. So there's some information on that you can go to learn about our different programs in terms of data. I just give you a few quick resources. Census.gov, type in Rome, that's not in Italy, but Response Outreach Area Mapper. It's a real quick way that you can go into your own neighborhood if you want to just grab some statistics real quick to learn about your neighborhood. And non-profits and private sector and government, everyone can use this data to help them understand, what the neighborhoods need, their age composition, their education levels, their language, maybe some language barriers that need to be addressed. Do they have health insurance? Do they have good Wi-Fi? There's so much data that we collect that are great resources to know about your neighborhood. Another source is census.gov called Quick Facts. And you can just go to census.gov and type in Wichita, and you'll see this on the right side here, just some quick facts. And again, if you're doing a presentation, or maybe you're going to be writing a grant, or for whatever reason, you can look at, hey, I need to know more about Wichita or another community I'm visiting, and pull up some quick data. And again, 2020 data is not quite out yet, but as you can see, we're darn close for 2019, and we'll have 2020 out, like I said, in the coming months here. But it gives you a pretty good snapshot of where we are at in a lot of different demographics there. And again, that's census.gov Quick Facts. And finally, again, we want to say thank you. I know Camila, I worked with you tremendously, and we worked with so many different great partners throughout our region to make sure that we had the most accurate count we could get and the most accurate data. And we appreciate your help with that. And I think I am going to wrap it up there and ready to take any questions you guys have.
So this is Camila. I unmuted to ask, do you think when the population data is ready for disbursement, that the city and county will receive it first so that they can look at the redistricting dynamics of, and some people may or may not understand what you meant by redistricting, meaning that a good example is District 1 might add a portion or lose a portion from another district. Because a good example is at one point in time, Linwood Park was in District 3, and due to such a long word, redistricting, it became part of District 1. And so just for the community to be aware that some people don't understand why that took place. And so this is a time and era where I think because of our digital world of social media and the internet, that it's easier for people to understand where that change and focus came from?
Right, great question. So most of our data, we're going to be releasing it from the largest geographies down to the smallest. So for instance, and I don't know exactly when, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks, the census will have a population count for the state. And so all that's going to really tell us is how many representatives we get. And, for us, we're pretty sure it's 4, so, but of course there's some states, Texas, there might be 3, might be 2, they're not really sure. And there's a lot of states that are on the line. So, and then we work our way down. Then we release counties and then cities, and it's all the way down to the block level. So if you think of the little block that you live in, like a city block, there's a number there, a population number, and we're gonna release that. So when they go to get to that point where we need to do there's reapportionment, redistricting, and they're going to have to make adjustments, right? Because Wichita's grown. Some of the other small communities in Kansas haven't. They're going to have to, their districts are going to have to grow, right? So almost, I can't think of any district that's not going to change somehow. So yeah, things are going to change. District 1 is going to change. I can guarantee it somewhere. I don't lose Uptown, but because of population changes, there's just going to have to be some adjustments made. So great question. And yeah, so when it comes down to the local level, that's going to be more like spring and even maybe early summer before we get down to like how many people live on your block, essentially. Yeah, great question.
Anyone on Zoom is welcome to unmute and talk, as we also are looking at Facebook posts. Jason, there is I'll call it a 60-second lag between the Zoom conversation going on to Facebook.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I did not know that.
Well, while others are thinking about a question, my question is just from your experience, did we do a better job in 2020 than we did in 2010?
Right. So we did, it varies by neighborhood, but overall, we did a little bit better than 2010. A little bit better. And like I said, every 0.1%, that is great in terms of being responsive to the taxpayer and in accuracy. And again, we're checking our work by essentially sampling households and saying, hey, did you fill out the census? How did you do that? And then we know our overcount and our undercount. And that won't be out till next fall. So it's just kind of an estimate where we believe we are. But we worked with the city and the county. So every single housing unit that the city knows about and the county knows about, which is almost everybody, we have a number for. So that puts us pretty darn close. There's always a few people that don't want to be counted, right? You got somebody that's way off the grid, and they can be tough to find. But 99.98, we're there. Great question.
All right, I have another one. Federal allocations of funding. We previously had the flyer that said, hey, if you don't complete this survey, your household, our community could lose like $40,000 to $50,000 per household. When does that funding shift with the new numbers? So sometimes the federal fiscal year is what, October?
Yeah. So, nationally, it's 675 billion about that gets distributed. And, so that part of it, that component's out of census control. That's really up to your representatives, right? So they're going to get these numbers, and it's going to be, a lot of numbers late spring into early summer. And so it's really up to them, as far as allocation with the new numbers comes about. So yeah, the fiscal year usually starts like in October, I believe, right? So I would hope that they would use our new numbers, and I'm here to help them do that as soon as they can get that into their budgets and into to their authorizations for their spending. So certainly in this fall and into next year, hopefully it will affect it by then. Should.
All right. Not to prolong things, but Jason, if you want to hang on a couple more minutes, you can. We can move on to other conversations. And then we also will welcome you to the District 1 Advisory Board. I'll send you those dates. Or we could just share this PowerPoint with them.
Sure,
so that
absolutely.
they can be ready for your full data presentation once it's released. Councilmember Johnson, have any other follow-up comments or questions?
No more questions. I just appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. It looks like Ms. Bostic has a question. You got to unmute, Ms. Bostic.
I'm sorry I got on late. I was doing some other stuff. For grant writing, I know that the data is used for grant writing, and I thought those questions that Camila asked were good. But for grant writing, give me the stuff, the information for grant writing, and do we apply through what organization? If, for instance, I'm a member of a 5013C, and if we were to write a grant, how would we apply? Where would we get the application online?
Okay. Yeah. So the presentation I'll give, we're Camila and I are hoping for May. We'll go into more detail on that. Essentially, some of the census products that are great for grant writing, we do what's called a narrative, which when you figure out what area you want to get a grant for, because that's kind of where it starts, right? Is it for your neighborhood? Is it for the city? Is it from the county? Is it from the state? Then we can pull a narrative that describes what the grant writers or the grantors want to know about your income levels and education levels. And there's so many grants, and Camila and Mr. Johnson and others in the community will have to help you as far as what grants from where, because there's so many different directions that can come from, right? So you're working with a nonprofit, or you're working from the government side, something else from private sector. So to kind of help guide us in the right direction, and then I can help you with understanding what you'll need for that grant.
And Dave, your last name is what?
I'm Jason Dean, D-E-A-N.
Well, why am I looking at Dave? Let's see.
Your screen, you have to move your screen over.
Okay.
But Ms. Bostic, we'll give his PowerPoint presentation, and we can actually put it into the newsletter also.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we don't have any questions on Facebook. So like Camila said, Jason, we'd love to have you stick around, just in case some other questions pop up. Ms. Bostic said, Dave, and I look at the background and I see all of these Krispy Kreme donuts. It looks good. I'm missing out right now.
Sure, I'll stick around.
He's really supporting the breakfast initiative, right? I'm over here with a protein shake, Dave. What a balance.
Well, there's a few things I can talk about and answer questions if need be. If you have not seen the newsletter, there are some things we talked about in that have been going on, saying that 2021 is off to a busy start. So we'll talk nationally first and then locally. I know we all saw the tragic events of the other day going to the Capitol, and I think that we have an opportunity here in Wichita just to show that we are continually better than some of the things that we've seen, and working with each other, respecting each other, even in disagreement. I know that we are better than that. And I just want to highlight that for those who may still be feeling down about that attack on our country, that we are better than that and we can do better than what we saw. And it's just up to us to work together and work through those disagreements so that we don't end up in that type of situation. But I am glad to see that justice is being served and those who went into the building and destroyed property are being arrested. And we're seeing that more and more online. So that part's good. And I'm glad that Senator Moran called that out and stood up. Here locally, we've been busy. So since our last breakfast, many of you know there's a vacancy in District 3. Councilmember Clendenin stepped down or resigned back in December. That process is posted online for anyone who lives in District 3 to start acquiring signatures so that they can go in front of the District Advisory Board for District 3. And that District Advisory Board will pick their top 5, send those to the council, and then we will interview those folks and make an appointment to fulfill the remainder of Councilmember Clendenin's term through January of 22. So that's in the newsletter. That is happening. The mayor made the announcement Tuesday, which is something we have to do by law, the first full meeting after a resignation. So we started that process. There's 2 ways folks can go get those signatures. The traditional way, by just going out and getting people to sign it. I want to encourage anybody who is in District 3 that might hear this or see it or see that and been looking at it to be safe. So if you want to go that traditional route, think about getting a cheap pack of pens, and anyone who signs that, they sign it with that pen and they get to keep it. You continue to wear your mask, keep washing hands, keep some hand sanitizer on you. And then there's a virtual, or not virtual, but a digital way to get those signatures. And it's a lot more complicated, but it is a safe way that you can do it. So all of that's outlined on the City of Wichita page. There's a link in the newsletter. If you don't have the newsletter, definitely sign up for it, but you can go to wichita.gov, click get information, click City Council, and you'll see the vacancy on the District 3 position. You can click that and see all the information there and get more instructions. Also, the ICT Council Chat, something that we started last year under the leadership of Councilmember Bluebaugh, who really wanted to find new innovative ways to communicate directly with our constituents. So we've been doing that. It started off with both he and I. It's rotated now to being open to all of the council. And so we've been doing that. Councilmember Toto and I ended last year and started off this year. And we talked about some of the items that came up before City Council on Tuesday. Again, all in the newsletter. But great discussion, something that you can always check out and get further insight into some of the votes and issues that came before council. So that's there. We've also just named officially the new library in District 3. So we appreciate, I believe the gentleman's name is Max Cole, who donated the space or gave it to us at a significant discount. That will be the new library in District 3. As we kind of talked about earlier, census-wise, Linwood was that library and it was in District 3, but with the change in boundary, Linwood became a part of District 1, so District 3 lost their library. This is an opportunity now over by Clapp Park to have a brand new library. And we adopted the name Dr. Ronald W. Walters just because of all of the service he gave, not only to this city, but this country. He made a national impact, and he's from Wichita and worked here. And for those who don't know, you can look this up, but he was one of the organizers of the Dockham sit-in, working with NAACP Youth Council. And that's a fascinating story, not just because of the sit-in and what they did, but also some of the internal issue with the national NAACP and them telling them to step down, and the young folks saying, no, we want to see change and we're going to do it now. And they went and did it. And that was a model for other sit-ins we saw across the country. Right after the one here, there was the one in Oklahoma. And then after that, there was what everyone thought was the first one, the Greensboro 4. All of that came from this. So that's really good. It's going to be awesome there. And I made a recommendation that we try to build a partnership with Howard University, where he actually has a department or a facility there. And if we can get some of those works here for the folks in Wichita, but especially the folks surrounding that library, to be able to go in and read about Dr. Walters, his accomplishments. He's an author, so he's got several books. If there's just a section there for him in that partnership, I think that would be great for the city. So that's happened as well. Something else happened Tuesday that I didn't put in the newsletter. It'll come back to me. Other than that, this is the beginning of my 4th year in office, which is odd. This time has flown pretty quickly, probably because of 2020. 2020 felt like 5 years in one, but also went pretty quick as well. So this is the 4th year. Looking forward to serving another year in this seat. And one of the focuses that it's in the newsletter too, but just taking on slumlords. I've heard so many heartbreaking stories over the years and seen where we've had struggles with the legislature and getting landlord, tenant, blight, all of that stuff addressed. And just the last few months, most people knew about the University Plaza incident. Since then, I've had other people reach out saying that they are in maybe worse situations from knocking doors. I've seen people in these situations, and I highlight resources that we have, whether it's Power CDC or Habitat for Humanity or Mennonite housing. Like, these are all opportunities to get folks into quality housing that's still affordable and get out of those properties that some of those slumlords don't take care of. So that's going to be something that we really focus on. I wanted to do it last year, but of course the pandemic kind of stopped everything, and that was our main focus. But I want to get back into looking at that, working with the Urban League on some of this as well. So that is a focus, that is an issue. We're talking about that, put it in the newsletter, and you'll probably hear a lot more about that throughout the year. And then past that, we have next week, we'll be choosing a new vice mayor for the city of Wichita. So our current one is Councilmember Claycomb, representing District 6. She's our vice mayor. If you don't know, vice mayor rotates every year. The council will vote for that individual, and that individual is sworn in the same meeting. So Tuesday at 9, we'll vote for a new vice mayor, get sworn in, and go forward for 2021 with that vice mayor. And then we'll do the same thing again next year in 2022 for our next vice mayor. My last update for you all who tuned in to the District 1 Advisory Board meeting, there was a controversial case around a zoning change for a senior center over at the old Holy Savior Catholic Academy building on 15th and Oliver. And I'm really appreciative again of community speaking up. When I first saw that application, it was, well, it was before it was filed. This probably was October or November. I met with the applicant, saw the plans, thought about what that meant to the neighborhood, and encouraged them to reach out to neighborhood association presidents about that, because I tend to not give my thoughts or opinions on the development before I've heard from a neighborhood. So from that point, I hadn't heard much as far as a report back from the applicant that they had talked to the neighborhood. So I just figured I'd hear about it at some point. And I appreciate all the residents reaching out with their concerns and then highlighting the property management issues of the applicant. And that really helped to get more people involved. So again, I appreciate the engagement of neighbors and neighborhoods in this process, as I have my own frustrations with some of the notification stuff that we're working on right now. But MAPC and the District Advisory Board voted to deny this applicant. Next steps right now, even with 2 denials.
Johnson, can I,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. If we hold for a minute, the denial letter is now on the screen share. And we did have a follow-up question about the next steps. I went to the bottom of that denial letter. If you can see that real quick.
Yeah.
It's, okay.
Yep. So next steps is, even with 2 denials, it comes to the city council, and we have to officially deny it or overrule those denials. So the council will make that decision on Tuesday, February 9th. We had, I believe it was Matt on the call from the district advisory board, kind of give out the steps to protest this if you would like to. That is on your screen right now. So definitely encouraging neighbors who feel strongly about this to take part in that, and definitely do it this way. We've had situations in the past where neighbors just sent emails to either me or maybe like a inspector, but not following this process. So it wasn't considered an official protest. So I want to make sure you know this process right here and follow that so it can be considered valid protest when it comes to council. We do read all of those protests that we learn about. Staff will tell us that a certain percentage of the property surrounding protested. Sometimes within the minutes, you'll see some of those reasons. So each council member does get to see the minutes from the MAPC hearing and the DAB hearing. So they get to hear what or read what the neighbors were talking about. So definitely want to encourage people to fill out that protest or go through the protest process if you see fit. But that was denied. And then when it comes to council, my colleagues and I will make a final decision on that. So again, if you feel strongly about it, either way, let us know. We'll be reading that, let staff know through that process, and then we will get this addressed. But again, I appreciate everybody who engaged, reached out, and then let me know some information I didn't know in regard to the number of properties and the condition of some of these properties. So I appreciate that too.
Councilmember Johnson, if I could interject here, I would like Ms. Bostic to just hear from me that because you spoke at the MAPC meeting, they are mailing you and 3 other residents the official denial letter. So you should please check your mail, Ms. Bostic. I'm not going to show the public. Let me hit stop share real quick. But I want to look at it and tell you that Mr. Kimball spoke out loud, Mrs. Bostic spoke out loud, Ms. Sellers spoke out, and former Councilmember Lavonta Williams spoke. So they have your addresses. You will get that MAPC denial letter and the next step as far as the February 9th council meeting. So look, check your mail.
Cool. So that's pretty much all I had on that case. But that did happen. Those are the next steps. We are talking on council about the whole process of what that development sign looks like, making it kind of more understandable for the everyday person who's not used to all the legalese and zoning codes and all of that, so they can understand that. So that is a conversation, as well as changing that notification radius. That 200-foot notification has been a focus of mine for a while. I think that we should go farther. It's not necessarily fair to me at 200 feet. So we're going to continue that conversation probably throughout the year as we talk more about places for people. And then just kind of wrapping up what I had, again, going back to the newsletter, it's a great way to get all of the resources that we have. Don't forget that we have that water bill relief program right now going through January 31st. So you have an opportunity to get some help on that. It's a one-time $50 credit on your December water bill. So that helps you out quite a bit. Camila's pulled that up on the screen. So definitely check that out. That's important. We pushed for an extended period from council just to make sure folks that maybe didn't catch it in December, December, Christmas and other holidays, and you might not be paying attention to all of that. Wanted to give some additional time to get that assistance. And especially during the pandemic, people's budget constraints are serious right now. So $50 is a big help to folks. And then just don't forget, we still have those free reusable masks at our neighborhood centers, Coleman, Atwater, Evergreen. You can come get those. Those are free of charge. And oftentimes we give you more resources with that just in case you need other help. And I want to encourage everybody to pay attention to the vaccine rollout. The governor has made a few adjustments to who gets that in the different phases. So definitely stay in tune with that. And I will try to get that added to the next newsletter as things get finalized, but the vaccine is rolling out. And if you have concerns, there are a number of town halls that have been had to look at the science behind it. What was Operation Warp Speed? What did it truly mean? The Black Alliance, which by virtue of being a Black elected official I'm a part of, actually held a virtual town hall on December 28th with local doctors talking about the science. And it was actually more informative than I thought it would be. I really wanted to hear the doctors' opinions about it. Each doctor is African American and just talked about their experiences. They've all got the vaccine, so they wanted to share that they have taken it. But then when we started talking about the science behind it, it was nice to have verified things I had read where this mRNA research technology, if you want to call it that, has been in the works for maybe almost 20 years. And it was just applied to COVID-19. So it's not like this is something brand new, truly untested. It was just applied to this virus. So that was interesting to hear. And they actually offered up some slides that talked through that, a grid. You could see what this meant, what is RNA. It's similar but different than DNA. And that was pretty informational. So I've encouraged people to do that. I know that there is some lack of trust of government or lack of trust of a vaccine, but that was a very informational town hall. There were at least 3 others that talked about the science behind that as well. So as you have your questions and are observing to see, what happens with it, definitely check those out and try to get to the science behind those. I think with that, I will stop there. Camila, did you have anything or is there any other questions?
Sure. I just wanted to kind of let Facebook catch up and just share in the newsletter too about the opportunity for us to vote for Best Small Airport for our Wichita Airport, the Eisenhower National Airport. If you don't mind, you can go to the airport's Facebook page, USA Today's website, or if you have the newsletter, which is posted on Facebook, to go vote for our own city. And then as we talked about landlord situations, the city housing department still has the waiting list open for the housing choice voucher services, which was formerly known as Section 8. And so you can still apply and see if you qualify if you're in a situation where you can't afford to pay the full price of rent. Or home ownership also. There are some programs that can help with mortgage supplements too. I think it's cool that we have a good partnership with Kansas Department of Transportation because as you can see, I-135 has been closed off at a lot of intersections in District 1 over the last year. So they're sending us weekly updates. So you guys can go to KDOT's website and every 2 weeks, of course, I put in the newsletter, but it gave me a heads up of what areas to avoid recently. So just grateful for that information. And then just to remember that to keep our youth active in services, this is not just about the city of Wichita, but just to share with your neighbors and friends of the things that youth can do. And there still are social distance classes and from arts to physical activities for youth to stay involved in. We know that they are truly bored since March of 2020. And so what we can do to promote and encourage the youth around us and our families and our neighborhoods, I think it's just to share the information. We still have a digital divide between who does and doesn't get to see what we post. So if you can share, that would be greatly appreciated. You had a question in the Facebook comments, Councilmember Johnson, about places for people. And do you know when the next time that may or may not come back to the council?
Wow, my Facebook didn't refresh. I didn't see any of that.
It says, any updates on places for people plan? How are areas being designated as nodes worthy of investment?
I don't have any updates right now. I probably will soon. So from that workshop, everything that we said from the council is going back and being reworked by staff. The node conversation, I believe, happened 2 years ago. And since I'm not in my office right now, I don't have that book, but those were chosen based upon, I believe, population, attractions. And I say attractions such as like, you know, a grocery store or like Wichita State or, you know, a developmental type of hub where you're kind of building a very bikeable, walkable space. It wasn't based around like car travel, trying to get back into making our city more bikeable and walkable. Some of the nodes that I'm aware of that were initially identified is 21st and Oliver, 17th and Hillside, and I think 9th and Grove. I'd have to go back and look past that. Kind of in this northeast area. If you get a little further south towards Uptown, I think Douglas and Hillside was a node, as well as closer to Douglas and Oliver, maybe. But yeah, I'll try to find that and get that sent out just so we know where that is. A lot of our discussion right now with Places for People is around infill, so those building homes. And that was why I was concerned about eliminating the notification piece. Just like, you know, with this case on 15th and Oliver, when you look at what just happened, if that notification hadn't went out and neighbors didn't know, but then saw construction start, you know, that would have opened up another can of issues. So that was kind of our focus of the discussion.
I have a question.
Yeah.
My question goes back to the library. A lot of us know the Walters family. And where is the exact location of that library? I'm a librarian, I'm a book person.
It is Harry and Oliver is Clapp Golf Court or Clapp Park now, and just west of the park. So just west of that park, in that parking lot, there is a 2-story building.
Hold on a second. I'm pulling up the exact address, Ms. Bostic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sitting in that space.
Here it is, 4195 East Harry. 4195 East Harry. And it's also in the District 1 newsletter
Okay.
when you click the press release.
Oh, okay. All right.
So you can share it with others.
Okay. Well, I knew his aunts and his uncles and all those relatives. So not all of them, but a lot of. Okay, thank you. And I met him.
That's awesome. I'd like to share something, and because I can talk, it's community conversation right now, that the Walters family brought up during the city council meeting when it came to voting. And his brother, right, brought up the conversation of the generational gap of social media and how more popularity votes may have went to Mr. Walters had people known the avenue for voting. And that was an aha moment, again, for our digital divide and our generational gap in using social media. So I hope that brought awareness to us as city staff of how we get information out to the community. And I'm such a huge proponent of mailing postcards. I wish we had more funding, and I know the budget is tight, but my biggest wish as a community service rep is to mail more postcards to people.
Yep, that was a good point that they made. And then Ms. Bostic, we'll definitely want to invite you when everything is safer to a potential ribbon cutting. Mrs. Walters said that she wanted to come to town for that as well. So since you knew some of the family, you'd be able to see her as well. She's really excited about this.
I go everywhere else I want to, so I'll be glad to come. Lord's willing.
Awesome. We'll definitely let you know about that. Back to Facebook, there was one question about 17th and Hillside being one and it not being on the map. I have not looked at the latest map. So I've been a part of that process, just being on council in 2018, but I think all of that started in either late 16 or 17 and just been paying attention to where that dialogue has been. So one of the maps that I have had 17th and Hillside, but I don't know if that's still reflective in there now because we were focused on something else, but I'll go check that out.
On our city website, Councilmember Johnson, this is just me talking out loud. Is Opportunity Zone under economic development, or was it under another section? So I was going to try to share that.
Should be under economic development.
Okay, found it. So I will email that to you, Nikayla. I'll say it out loud. The link to Opportunity Zones on the city's website.
Cool. I don't see any other questions on Facebook. Did anybody have a question about anything I've said thus far?
Oh, Lonnie Wright's first question before Jason presented. So it's on the chat in Zoom.
I only see Jason's.
Okay, hold on. Let me try to navigate this screen real quick. Okay. Why do we need to spend $165,000 to make sure our police officers are not cheating on their online training? Other professions are able to ensure their members are present for their continuing education without this expense. And then there's a second question.
Like, first one is great. Your Facebook is up right now.
Thank you.
So that entire presentation and even some of the questioning kind of pushed that into maybe the wrong perspective. So this software has nothing to do with officers cheating. It really doesn't even have anything to do with the fact that the police were looking for some software for 10 to 12 years prior to this. What ended up happening was there was money allocated from a Department of Justice grant that was specifically for looking at preparedness and response to coronavirus with law enforcement specifically. There was a preparedness coordinator that would have been hired, but given the fact that this was grant funded, the pandemic, the fact that there was a hard deadline on it, and most of us, I've worked in nonprofit majority of my professional career. When you get a grant funded position, that day that it's over is the day the money runs out and your job's over unless you find additional work. That was actually a position I had prior to being on council. I had a 2-year position. The hard date was November of 2017. And once that date was over with, I would not have had a job. I would have had to find something else, which I knew where I was going to go. But so that's kind of the difficulty of grant funded work at that point. And this was a specialized position. What ended up happening was with this money, the individuals that applied ultimately were interviewed, ultimately were selected. It came down to 2 finalists. This is not a quick process with the city. And that was some of the conversation at the council meeting. And of those 2, one took a position somewhere else, which may have been better for them or may have been more money. And then the top person never responded through multiple contacts with that individual. So phone calls, emails, and that was explained at the meeting as well. Then police looked at another issue that we had, and that was during the pandemic, training our officers was really difficult, given the software that we had, given the fact that they normally meet in person at the Law Enforcement Training Center on Wichita State's campus. We couldn't meet in high numbers, and we need to train all of our officers every year. I have new insight now that I'm the chair of CPOST, and we require officers to have at least 40 hours of training every year. That was modified during the pandemic down to 20, but our officers were not getting the training that they need. So given the pandemic, given the national unrest, we weren't able to get officers trained in the way that we needed to. This software allows us to do it, and it's the same software that the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center in Hutchinson uses. So this was actually a purchase to make sure that even through a pandemic, where officers have to be distant and can't gather in large numbers, we could train our officers. One of the added benefits of that was what was highlighted at the meeting and in the newspaper, and that is an officer can't cheat on the training. That was something as an activist I used to speak about because we knew officers that could do something like that. But that's never the sole decision in buying some equipment like this or software like this. The software also has other capabilities that the department needed. And going forward, it's something that's going to benefit us, you know, in the case of a future pandemic, in the case of our officers being sick. For some time, we had officers out on quarantine. This was an opportunity for that. So it wasn't we bought this so officers couldn't cheat. We actually went this way so that we can make sure our officers were trained during the pandemic. This year, we're still in a pandemic, so it's not like we just did it so they wouldn't cheat. So they still have opportunities to train right now and catch up from times that they couldn't last year, make sure they hit their requirements this year. And then going forward, plugging into some of the modified training at the Law Enforcement Training Center, because they have some great stuff out there. So that all really works together in this. And that was the genesis of the conversation. You said there was a follow-up question?
Yes, the follow-up question is, with the Kellogg bonds paying off, would you support using some of the county sales tax to expand transit?
Personally, I'd be supportive. I don't remember the wording in the agreement, but I don't think we can do that. I think the 1% Wichita gets half, and that has to go towards roads, bridges, and something else, but I don't think it's transit. But that is an interesting question. I'll see if there's any perspective or interpretation that says that. But right now, I can tell you that the city council in 2018 basically considered we were done with Kellogg, which is a shocker for many. Kellogg has been under construction since I was in middle school. So we said that we wanted to spend our money on improving other roads. And if you look in the 2020 budget book, you'll see the under where we do our CIP road projects, you'll see something that says LST. That's localized sales tax. That's what was paying for Kellogg. We've shifted a majority of that into making sure we continue to improve our arterials and our neighborhood roads. So we've already shifted a lot of what we were spending from Kellogg into making sure we keep our streets up. That was a commitment that the council made to the community, and we keep doing that. So we went from hearing a lot of complaints in 2018 and 19 about these cones and signs. Then now we're shifting into people seeing all of these new processes and stuff.
Thank you.
Yep. So
I have a
I
couple
would
more.
definitely be supportive of that if we could. Yeah.
On Facebook, I answered, but I just wanted to acknowledge and say this out loud. Someone asked, are there any DAB positions open in District 1? And my reply was yes, there's an opening for a District 1 resident that lives south of Kellogg. And you can expand on how you've tried to have representation from the entire district if you so choose.
Yeah, so actually I just found out, I asked for a list of my open appointments and folks who are termed out. So I actually have, I think, 2 DAB positions on that list. I've tried really hard to get somebody south of Kellogg, preferably in the Schweider or Linwood area, because there's no representation now for that area. And, you know, we look at zoning throughout the whole district. I've got quite a bit of folks either in College Hill or close to the Uptown area and north of here, but I don't have anything down there. So I've tried to hold out for that. If you are interested, you definitely can apply because there's no guarantee everybody comes back. I know last year, I think I lost 3 DAB members. 2 that were ready to kind of have somebody younger on the DAB, 1 that turned out. So definitely don't hesitate to apply. That doesn't mean you won't be considered. because I'm also not a fan of keeping things vacant for too long. And I know that it's almost been a year now, just trying to wait for someone who's interested south of Kellogg. So definitely apply if you would like. If there's any other boards you're interested in, definitely apply. I'll be sending out in the next week or two my email to everyone I've appointed to see who's still interested in staying and who's not. And then that way I know what vacancies I'll have to fill. I was just made aware that one of my appointees may be stepping down this month. They're supposed to let me know. So if that happens, I'll put that out in the public as well. But if you're interested in serving, definitely apply no matter what. I'll still reach out. I'll still talk to you and see what you're interested in and talk about either that one specific thing or maybe some other opportunities that are there.
If I could give a little plug, you do have some people are listening from Sunnyside here. Sunnyside is south of Kellogg.
There you go. Somebody from Sunnyside wants to join the DAB. I have some spaces available and I'll be making appointments. So definitely love to have those differing perspectives. And our district advisory board is a fun experience. We do a training or a refresher every year about the zoning code, what it means. I encourage all the district advisory board to reach out to neighborhoods and look at where these developments are happening, kind of get the image in your mind so you kind of know up front, does this fit or does it not? So yeah, definitely a good experience.
Switching gears, when I spoke of the housing choice voucher application list being open, someone asked how long the waiting list is. And what I learned to share with residents is the list is cleared based on available housing and applicants having all of their paperwork in order. So if let's say you signed up 6 months ago and they sent letters to 200 of those applicants, and of those 200 applicants, you may not have had your birth certificate, your social security letter ready, your proof of income, then you stay on the list and they move on to the next person who is ready. And so there is no exact time frame for that housing choice voucher waiting list. It's a give and take information there. So we encourage people to apply and then get all of your paperwork ready. So when your name is called, you can move forward. But it has not been the typical 3 to 5 year waiting list that some of us are used to hearing about. And I'll stop there.
Yep, thank you for that. There was a follow-up to the advisory board question from Facebook. How do you find a link to apply? So if you go to wichita.gov, click get information and then click citizen advisory boards. It's a longer name than that, but you'll see citizen advisory boards. Then you'll see every advisory board available from the city of Wichita. And once you click the one that you want, then you'll click, I think it says apply once you get into it. But
I'll pull it up real quick. And okay. I can put I don't know how to put the link in the Facebook page. Well, because I'm on Zoom right now, but we can add it to the newsletter and Facebook later. But here we go. Let me share screen. So there'll be of course, the lag again between me sharing this on Zoom to Facebook. Can you see it on Zoom now?
Yep.
So I'll start over. I was at wichita.gov, get information, click Citizen Advisory Board and committees.
Yep, there you go. And then folks can scroll down and see what board they're interested in and apply for that. Without going through every board, not every one of these has a council member appointment. There are a couple of boards that are only appointed by the mayor. And then there's a few that's joint city and county, so we don't make all of the appointments there. So, but definitely look through there. I think it says it in each one, and then apply for what you want. So you can see right there on the District 1 Advisory Board, there are 2 open seats. So I have those 2 appointments to make. And then if anyone is not interested in staying, then I'd have that. I saw a question from Mr. Barnes about who is from the Wichita State area. So from the Wichita State area right now, depending on how you define that, would be,
Lawanda lives north
yeah,
of Wichita
Lawanda.
State.
Gabriel. Seth is in that area.
Seth is near 13th and Oliver area south of Wichita State. So, and
Yeah.
when you talk about the Shocker Neighborhood Coalition, there's at least 3 DAB members that are part of Shocker Neighborhood Coalition.
Yeah, actually 4 because Danielle's is farther west. So yeah. There's a question from Facebook about modifications being done on the I-135 signs coming from the south at night. They need to be updated. Visibility is horrible. So for that one, I'll take that note and send it to KDOT. So we don't control the highway. The highway is under the jurisdiction of the state, so the Kansas Department of Transportation. So any lighting or signs or things like that is something we'd have to communicate to them to get that addressed. So since you brought that up, we'll make sure we get that communicated. Then I don't see any other questions on Facebook. Is there anyone else on here that has any questions or comments about what we've talked about or what we haven't talked about? You just have a question. Always happy to answer those.
I'd like to unmute and do another commercial break. If you are not receiving the District 1 newsletter, please send us your email, first, last name, and email address through Messenger. You can email me, Camila at kalexander@wichita.gov. We would like to get you connected. You can share this post after it ends, just to keep everyone informed on what's going on.
And then Ms. Bostic, I saw you were attempting to say something. You were muted at the time. You're still muted. You should be able to scroll down to the bottom of your screen and you'll see a video and a mute in the bottom left corner. Just click the mute button. There you go.
All right. Does Lawanda represent the Kenmar neighborhood, east and west?
No.
Not for DAB, no one is representing Kenmar. I was just talking in reference to who on DAB lives within the boundaries that Shocker Neighborhood Coalition has identified. And Wichita State identified that from 29th Street all the way south to Central, I-135 to Oliver. So there's no designated person at this point for Kenmar conversations. And that's something that's on our agenda with Councilmember Johnson.
Yep.
We didn't know who to contact, so I just thought I'd ask. We do have 2 neighborhood presidents here, Eric and Deborah.
Actually, it's no longer Eric, it's Mr. Paul Blair. And Mr. Paul and Deborah receive emails from Shocker Neighborhood Coalition consistently because I provided their information to Wichita State staff.
Okay. But one of them would be good.
Okay. Well, we're going to be reaching out to them anyway to talk about Kenmar in the future. So that'll be a conversation we can have.
All right, Councilmember Johnson, it says, can you speak on any future ambitions you may have as an elected official? Maybe a future run for mayor, senator, etc. You're on the spot.
Yeah. I normally don't get too deep into that. You know, I'm here in this position now because many in the community encouraged me to run. Try not to get too ambitious. I think that kind of clouds your judgment on decisions because you begin to think about, will people like me enough to do this or not? And I just try to do what I feel is right. So I can tell you right now, this is an election for city council. So I will be running for re-election this year, and that probably won't get too heated until summer or fall. But aside from that, whatever, people want me to consider, I will. And if people say they don't like me, I'll go back to doing what I was doing. It's just been an honor to serve. So it's kind of where I'm at right now. Oh, one point I did want to make, I didn't say earlier, I've received a few questions about the riverfront. So just let you know, the council has not still received the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan. We know what it is. I mean, we all saw it, but the council hasn't taken that action to officially receive it. We've not even talked about officially receiving it. We're still in the pandemic. We're still talking about rebuilding our economy. So that hasn't been a real focus. Personally, I'm still supportive of doing something. I've always said I wanted to see something happen there to liven up the place and reactivate the East Bank. And we don't know what that something is, but what we do know is that it'll go out for a public vote. No matter what it is that we do, we committed to that verbally many times. We committed to it in the council policy. So that's there. So again, any major renovations or modifications or proposals to tear down anything, all of that goes out to a public vote. The council won't be doing that on our own. So want to make sure everybody knows that that's not a really big conversation we're having right now. We're more focused on what this budget's going to look like this year. The other issues in our community. Is there going to be any other assistance from the federal government to help us out with our budgets, with our priorities and serving our citizens? That's been most of the dialogue, but that did come up. You may have seen a news interview about it. People have been asking folks in the media and reaching out to us, and different groups with different aspirations for what they want to see down there have been talking about it. So officially, we still haven't done anything, but we do support a public vote before we do anything major. And right now we are looking at professional management services for the facility. That's really going to help us coming out of the pandemic, because we'll have a professional company that just does this type of work to make sure that we're doing the best we can to activate that space as much as possible, as affordable as possible for our citizens to keep using. Our partners that have used the facility for free in the past, like typically Habitat for Humanity does a MLK Day build. All those groups will still get to use the facility for what they paid before. This won't change that. It's just to help us activate the space because we care about having that. So I wanted to give that update earlier, just forgot to say it. I guess with that, is there any other questions, comments? I don't see anything on social media. Let me refresh to make sure. Nothing there. Anyone else on Zoom?
I'd like to say thanks for hanging with us, Jason. Hope you felt informed also. And to our regular attendees, thank you for being involved. Ms. Bostic, Mr. Day, Mr. Wright, Mr. Barnes. We truly appreciate y'all on Zoom and then the Facebook engagement. I never thought our meetings would last the entire time on virtually, but I've been pleasantly surprised.
Wow.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate you all.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Next time we need Dave with those donuts. Well, all right. I won't keep everyone. Appreciate the gentleman on Facebook. I do see the comment. I appreciate you very much, and everyone else who has shown me support. And even those who haven't, you learn and grow from all of that. So I appreciate that. It's been an honor these last 3 years. I'm looking forward to the fourth. And then we'll see what happens later this year. But definitely thank you all for tuning in. I know we all want to be together in person. I always look forward to that, walking in and seeing everyone and smelling the food. And hopefully we'll be back there soon. I'm looking forward to that day.
But Ken, let me speak for Kenmar. Kenmar do appreciate you. We do pray for you. And we do appreciate you stepping up when we need you as taxpayers. And even though I didn't mean to lead, I was forced to do it. And anytime I have that opportunity to represent my neighbors, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, we thank you. You are a wonderful example for what I think all citizens should do in advocacy. I got the certified letter, I got the email, I saw everyone else who did. You really made sure the right people knew that there were some concerns, and you outlined it in a way that was great. I mean, it really made us look into it differently. So I appreciate you and being that example.
Thank you.
Well, with that, not to belabor it, thank you all for joining us this month. I hope to see you all next month at both DAB and Breakfast. We'll have some wonderful things to talk about. Again, next week we choose a new vice mayor, so check out that ceremony. And yeah, hopefully we can be together soon. Make sure you all stay safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, socially distance. And don't think that just because the vaccine, you've taken it, that still can't be transmitted. We still have some time before we get most Americans vaccinated. And, you know, we still got to keep our mask on, still got to be social distance. So stay safe, and I will see you all next month. Thank you for tuning in.